Welcome, fellow freaks, geeks, and nostalgic peeps to my channel, Slime & Slashers, where, we talk about everything from Nickelodeon slime to horror movie slashers, but plenty of stuff in between, including books. And today's video, I'm pretty excited because I think it's going to be fun and unique. Today, I'm doing a Battle of the Books video, and if you're confused about what that is, stay right where you are. We'll go to the short intro when we come back. I will explain everything to you, and it'll be a lot of fun, I promise. Welcome back, guys! I am so pumped. Okay, the idea of this. It is the Battle of the Books. I am pitting my top 10 from 2022 versus my top 10 from 2021, and we're going to see which book comes out on top. So, one of my picks for top 10 of 2022 versus one of my picks from my top 10 from 2021, head to head. They're gonna go up against each other. I can only pick one. It's like the other one ceases to exist. And these 10 books will, yes, be my ultimate 10 reads from the last 2 years total. So I'm very excited. This is really random, kind of like Battle of the Bands, but with books. So let's go. I've got a name picker wheel with all of my 10 favorite reads from 2021. So how we're going to do this, we're going to go through my 10 of 2022, one by one, and spin the wheel each time to see, which one my top 10 of 2022 goes against from 2021. So it'll be kind of random that way. I thought it was too easy to pit 10 versus 10, and we'll just see what happens. By the way, guys, before we get started, if you missed my top 10 from 2022, I will link that below. Check it out. You might want to see why I picked these books to be my top 10 of 2022, and that video will tell you everything you need to know. I did not make a video for 2021, but I did have a list. So that's why, another reason why I'm kind of excited to do this, since I never got to talk about the books from 2021. All right, number 10 on my 2022 top 10 list was Toady by Mark Morris. So Toady, wonderful coming-of-age horror book, very underrated book. Not a lot of people talk about it. It's a vintage book. Let's see what book it's going to be pitted against. And I'm scared. I'm nervous. All right, so the name picker wheel, that's where we're going now. All right, so spin, go. Toady versus, I'm scared. Oh, this is hard. I hate this. Toady versus Endless Night by Richard Lehman. I really like Endless Night. It's so fast-paced. This is so hard. I don't like this at all. I don't like this game. I don't like this idea. All right, putting myself on the spot, forcing myself to choose one over the other. I feel like Toady has the more unique aspects to it. Endless Night, yes, it was really exciting and fast-paced, but would the world be okay without another Richard Lehman book? Yeah, I guess. So I'm gonna pick Toady. Toady beats Endless Night. Oh my god. Okay, we're moving Endless Night now. All right, so far on our ultimate top 10 list of the 2 years, we've got Toady, stand strong. All right, number 9 from 2022, a romance book, which is very unusual for me since I'm more of a horror reader, but this was my first time reading romance. It was kind of silly, fun, zany, and also heartfelt, and it made me tear up. But it had a lot of great elements all combined together. This is Just Like Magic, and let's see what book Just Like Magic will be going against. Alright, Just Like Magic versus Silent Night by R.L. Stine. It is a Fear Street book, and I really like Silent Night. I just read Silent Night 2 in 2022, and it wasn't as good as the first one. The first one, there's something great about it. You've got a love-to-hate type of character with our main character, Riva. She is amazing. Amazing as in, I don't know, she's so mean and ridiculous and over the top, and she's such a caricature that you can't help but, really enjoy your time reading about her. And like I said, Just Like Magic, I really love the characters, I really love the humor, and the emotion. but I'm gonna have to go with Silent Night. Come on, Silent Night. All right, so we're 1-1 from 22 and 2021. All right, so number 8 on my top 10 of 2022 was The Midnight Club by Christopher Pike. A very emotional and heartfelt read. I love that book. All right, let's see what The Midnight Club will be battling against. This is so hard. The Midnight Club versus The Stand. The Stand is an epic adventure, an epic story written by Stephen King. I read it all with my eyes, no audiobook, and it's one of the longest books I've ever read, so I'm pretty proud that I read it with my eyes. I love the characters. The Midnight Club, we are following a group of teenagers who are staying in the hospice. They gather around at midnight and tell stories to comfort each other, and it's a great story about the examination of life and death and how someone can cope with the idea that their life is coming to an end and that they know that ahead of time. I think for the emotion alone, and there's a personal meaning to me from The Midnight Club, I think I'm going to have to pick The Midnight Club. This is very difficult. I'm not having fun right now. All right, number 7 on my top 10 of 2022 is Needful Things by Stephen King. Another epic, long Stephen King book with a lot of characters, kind of like The Stand, but it is shorter than The Stand technically. This stranger comes in from out of town, he opens a shop, people come in, they see items that they really, really want. A lot of cases it's really rare items, and they make a bargain, and a lot of the times the bargains that they make to get these items, it's not worth it. Shit goes to hell in the town. Lots of people get caught up in this whole mess, and it's not good. Things just get crazy, and so that's all I'll say about that. Very entertaining read. What book will that book be going against? Needful Things versus dun 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 dun. Woo, Hellhound. Hellhound is a wonderful paperback from hell read by Ken Greenhall. I freaking love that book. It was one of the very first paperback from hell reads that I ever read, and I gotta say, Hellhound, it's about a cold and calculated canine who is the main character of our story, but during the book it does switch points of views, and we do get the inner thoughts of another character who's pretty despicable. Our character Baxter, who is the canine we're following, he's despicable too, so there's a lot of really seedy characters in this book, but it's quite fascinating. The writing's fantastic. I gotta go with Hellhound. I love that book so much. Alright, so we're crossing out Needful Things. Goodbye! Alright, now, next up, number 6 on my top 10 of 2022 was The Troop by Nick Cutter. This is a very gory and gruesome book. Lots of body horror, that's why a lot of people like it. We're spending some time with this group of Boy Scouts, essentially. They're camping on an island, and this stranger comes across this island, not on purpose, on accident. He's kind of sick. Is he infectious? What's going to happen? What does he have? What is he infected with that he could potentially spread? And what happens to the boys who are exposed? So that's essentially the premise of The Troop. And what book will The Troop be going up against in this epic battle of the books? Let's see. Ooh, this is interesting here. The Sandman. This is by Miles Gibson. This is a very, very obscure, old school, vintage book. I don't feel like it's pure horror. I also think it's kind of a strange book. We're following our main character named Mackerel, who is a killer, and we get his inner thoughts because it's written like a journal entry, like it's his personal journal, and he's talking about his childhood, and it's a slow burn because you do learn about him growing up, but you also learn about his murders. It's a little strange in that you don't even know what to believe. To me, he feels like an unreliable narrator. There's not a lot of people's thoughts about this book when you go researching it online, and so it's kind of hard to gather other people's thoughts and opinions on this book. It is what it is. And it's very difficult to pit the two against each other. But I think The Troop was a deeper read, but I do think the more unique read of the two is The Sandman. For the deeper meaning, I'm going to pick The Troop, though. Alright, so The Troop beats The Sandman. Alright. Next up, number 5, we've got Harvest Home by Thomas Tryon. This is an epic folk horror book. The city folk move to a small town, get to know all the people in that small town, start to feel like they belong there, like they're really fitting in. However, they get a little comfortable too soon because things aren't what they seem in this small town, and they shouldn't have gotten so comfortable because it's not such a good place, perhaps, after all. Alright, so Harvest Home versus what book from 2021? Let's see. This is interesting. Okay. Harvest Home versus Paperbacks from Hell. And I really love both books. Both were incredible reads. Very different. It's hard to compare nonfiction with fiction, but I can easily pick one over the other because Paperbacks from Hell changed my life. I may have stumbled across Harvest Home and not have read Paperbacks from Hell first. But I don't think I would have stumbled across books like Hellhound or some more obscure horror gems if it had not been for Paperbacks from Hell. And in that way, it really changed my life. It changed my reading style and habits. And I love vintage horror. I almost love it more than modern horror fiction. I know that sounds crazy. I just have a really good time reading vintage old school horror. So I'm picking Paperbacks from Hell because it opened up my world. It really, really did. That one was brutal, though, I gotta tell you. It was brutal to make that decision. Very brutal. Alright, just 4 more battles left. So, my number 4 favorite read from 2022 was Krampus by Bram. Epic, epic story following Krampus and his battle against Santa, kind of to see who should be in control of Christmas versus Yuletide. And there's this guy who's stuck in the middle of the battle between Santa and Krampus's minions. So it's kind of interesting, very unique, different kind of book. Alright, let's see what book it's going against. Oh, this is so hard! Oh, no! No! Alright. So, Autumn Crow by Cameron Chaney, a wonderful collection of short stories, all taking place in the town of Autumn Crow. Essentially here, we're pitting a Christmas-themed story versus a Halloween-themed story. Well, a collection of stories. But all the stories in Autumn Crow take place in the town of Autumn Crow, where it's essentially Halloween all the time. So I love that, like, that all the short stories are tied together. It's very rare that I really, really love short story collection as much as I loved Autumn Crow, hence why it made my top 10 of 2021. Krampus was such a great book, and the audiobook was fantastic. I'm, like, so torn. This is so hard. I gotta go with Autumn Crow by Cameron Chaney because there's hardly any other books, in my opinion, that really feel super appropriate for Halloween time. Not only does it have, like, the fall type of descriptions and vibes throughout the book, it also has, like, a morose feeling and a sadness to some of the stories, which I think perfectly encapsulate the Halloween feel. And it almost has a Ray Bradbury type of vibe, but it's way more approachable, in my opinion, in terms of the language and the ease of reading, because sometimes Bradbury, it's kind of difficult with his language usage to really feel like it's an easy read. Autumn Crow is an easy read, but it was still an elegant read, if that makes sense. The language was still amazing and beautiful, but approachable at the same time. So we're going with Autumn Crow, because I think anybody could enjoy Autumn Crow and think it was a wonderful Halloween read. That's not to knock Krampus, it's just Autumn Crow came first when it came to a holiday-appropriate book. So, Autumn Crow, baby! That was so tough. That was torture. I hate making decisions. If you guys didn't know, I freaking loathe making decisions. It's literally like the worst thing in the world. All right, so my number 3 from my top 10 reads of 2022 was Clowns vs. Spiders by Jeff Strand. One of the funniest books I've ever read, period, and definitely the funniest horror book I've ever read. Love it, love it, love it. Lots of absurdity, some gore, and some violence too, but really the comedy is why I loved it so much, and the over-the-top characters about clowns versus spiders. That's essentially what the book is about. Alright, so clowns versus spiders against... Dun 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 dun! Oh god, no. So difficult. Such Nice People by Sandra Scopatone, I think it's how you pronounce it. Such Nice People is one of the most disturbing books I've read because we're following this family, and one of the members of the family is kind of losing his mind, but no one else in the family 100% realizes this. The mom has some kind of suspicion that something's amiss, but doesn't know quite what's going on. She hems and haws over what to do, but as the story progresses, we slowly learn more about the deterioration of the main character, the guy who's losing his mind's journey into madness, essentially. We're learning some of his actions, some of his plans. Meanwhile, we're also following the drama between the mom and the dad of the family and their relationship falling apart. So there's some domestic stuff in there in terms of, you know, just random stuff about the couple and relationship examination and stuff like that. That never bored me. I liked that part of the book. Some people might have been turned off by that, but the ending is what you want to read it for, because the ending is nuts. Also, there's this shed scene, which is super hard and difficult to read, so that wasn't easy. I don't know. So out of these two, I feel like I have to pick Such Nice People. It's so hard! I love Clowns vs. Spiders so much, but I feel like Such Nice People is such a freaking hidden old school rare gem that I've got to shout it out. I feel like an indie gem, that's what Clowns vs. Spiders is. They're both gems in different ways, but Such Nice People is just kind of really impactful. Obviously, a horror comedy wouldn't have the same kind of impact and staying power, I think, as Such Nice People. However, for me, they both have a pretty big stay impact, but if I was, like, trying to think of it, you know, for a general audience, I'm gonna pick Such Nice People, but it's killing me to do this. I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. I really hate this. Alright, oh my god, these next two. So number 2 on my favorites list of 2022 was Geek Love by Katherine Dunn. Such a great story. We're following a traveling carny family, and the two people in the family, the head of the family, the mom and dad, decide, hey, let's breed our own freaks so that we can ensure this carnival lasts for a really long time. And not only are the mom and dad messed up, but the freaking kids are messed up too. And they do messed up things. So the story follows all of them. I love our main character, who's the narrator of the story, Ollie. She's wonderful, a lovable character, despite all of her flaws and her family's flaws. Very interesting characters, very well written too. So Geek Love versus what? Under the Blade by Matt Serafini. Okay, that's not so bad. I really loved Under the Blade. It's still one of my favorite slashers of all time. I think my top 2 favorite slashers, Under the Blade and Just Like Candy. But nothing can really hold up to Geek Love in terms of character development. There is such wonderful and such multifaceted character development in Geek Love. I gotta pick Geek Love. Geek Love, you stayin'. And goodbye, Under the Blade. Alright, next up. And there's only one, so we don't have to spin here. Alright, so the last two. Boy's Life was my number 1 read of 2022, and it's my favorite book of all time. So that's pitted against the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. As much as I love Grady Hendrix, my favorite book by him isn't even the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. It's freaking My Best Friend's Exorcism. And I read that before, you know, in 2020, not in 2021. So it has to be Boy's Life. That is my favorite book of all time. It's, of course, gonna beat the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. So Boy's Life. All right, let's look at what we have here. So this worked out crazy. This worked out perfectly. So I ended up keeping 5 books from my list from 2021 and 5 books from my list from 2022. So we've got 5 and 5 from each list from each year, combining to be the top 10 ultimate reads of the last 2 years. So going through them all, we have Toady, we have The Midnight Club, we have The Troop, we have Geek's Love, Boy's Life, Silent Night by R.L. Stine, Autumn Crow, Such Nice People, Hellhound, and Paperbacks from Hell. And I do think that is an epic list, a very, very epic list. Now, of course, we could do this again and get different matchups and see if I would have picked that or if I would have kept Clowns vs. Spiders, perhaps. If it had fallen against Under the Blade, I would have, or if it had fell against Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, I definitely would have picked Clowns vs. Spiders over that. But just, it was the way the wheel spun. So it is what it is, but I hope you guys had fun with that silly little project of mine, Battle of the Books. Do you guys want to do something like this? I'd love to see other people try this, because it's just fun, and I know it really doesn't have any super deep meaning, because, like, why pit it those 2 years against each other specifically? I don't know. I just wanted to have a face-off of books versus books and make myself tortured and miserable by forcing myself to choose books that I love over other books that I love just as much, but in different ways. So take my eliminations with a grain of salt in a way, because it's kind of hard to compare these books, especially because they were at different positions on the list than each other. But it's also different when you're comparing like a slasher versus a super serious horror book, or a more literary horror book, or you're comparing a comedy horror book like Clowns vs. Spiders versus a flippin' book like, you know, Such Nice People. It's just completely different, and that's what, you know, got pitted against each other. Or when you're pitting a nonfiction versus a fiction. It is what it is. Anyway, guys, how would you have chosen, if you've read some of these books in terms of my matchups, you know, pitting them against each other, would you have chose a different book over the other? And have you read any of these books in general? Let me know by commenting below. And thank you so much for hanging with me. I appreciate each and every one of you. Alright guys, but for this time, that is it for me. Till next time, guys, you know what you can do. Keep on killing it. Bye, guys.